Hey makers, this is part 2 of my 4 years of film school and 90-minute presentation. If you haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend it. The link is in the description below. Start there. If you've already seen it, let's get into part 2. 4 pieces of equipment. We have lights, we have microphones, we have cameras, and we have our stability. 2 schools of thought. You get what you pay for, and more money does not always equal better. I know those are contradictory, but they're both true at the same time. The law of diminishing returns is this, all right? If I spend $500 on my equipment, like what I saw in Bourbon Moth and Keith's yesterday, I'm here. And story not included in this because Jason is ridiculous and nobody can emulate that except for Craftsman. All right, so we have $500 I've spent here, $3,000 I'm here, $20,000 I'm here. All right, the law of diminishing returns is right around $3 to $5 grand, but $0 is down here. You have in your pocket a camera that is better than a $10,000 camera from 10 years ago. So you're already ahead of the game. And I'm not going to talk about specific products. I'm just going to cover them in general. The whole point of lighting is to control shadows. I know many of you guys, like Jason uses natural light, and that's a luxury that we don't all have. I shut everything down and I control lighting manually. First rule of lighting is 3-point lighting. How many have heard of 3-point lighting? All right? 3-point lighting is not 3 pieces of light. It's light from 3 directions. You have your key light, which is your light. That is what's lighting up you, your hero, your subject, etc. You have your, go ahead and hit it. You have your fill light, which eases the shadows of the key light. And then you have your backlight. Now your key light can be the sun, light, window, and it's just there to light you up. Your fill light eats up your shadows, all right? Or it softens that shadow. So it's at 100%. Let's say they're equilateral distance from each other. This is at 100%, this is around 70, 75%. And then your backlight, some of you guys call it a hair light. That's wrong. It's at 50%, and it's what gives you definition. It's what gives you, instead of looking like a flat subject, that little bit of backlight gives your subject definition. If you guys are shooting in your shop with all those overhead Barina lights and the LEDs, you have one giant key light or a key fill combo, all right? You need to have a backlight or an underlight. Let's see if it goes to it. All right? So we're emulating here. And see, when we have that, look at all these little raccoon eyes, especially for those that wear the ball caps because you want to hide what God blessed you with. Hey, God made a few perfect heads, the rest He put hair on. But if we come in and add a small, and I had one, I think somebody grabbed it in an example. If we add a little small fill light, we will eat up those shadows. I think it comes in here. There you go. All right, and so you can get them as cheap as $20 to run on AA's. I like the Aperture AM60? I don't remember. Whatever. Ask Simon, he knows. But it will just ease those, and we're talking like 20% power. Just something soft. I saw Weber used like shop lights in that perfect color temperature. So, 160, 50, key fill back, overhead. There's lots of different options with this. You guys can do panel lights. So when you go from a single source to a softbox, etc., the softbox just amplifies that source as a wider, and it turns it from hard shadows into soft, and it's just to emulate daylight is its main purpose. Then I want you, and I think I talked about color temperature here, yeah. So talk about color temp real quick. For those of you who don't know, you're wondering like 5,000K, 5,600K, 33, etc. That is a flame fire temperature Kelvin. That's an actual temperature of Kelvin degrees. It doesn't matter as much for us. Like incandescent light is around 3,300, 37. That warm white, cool white's around 5 to 56, or daylight, clouds and etc. is up at 7, 8. Very blue. When you have those white lights, they are your CRI, your color rendering index. Let's look at it this way. You have a white light shining onto a white piece of paper and a red piece of paper, all right? when it's a pure white light on there, you can see white and red. If I took a red light and shined it onto both of them, it just looks like one red piece of paper across. When you have your lights in your shop at high CRI number, then that purple heart wood is actually purple heart color. All right? Then lux and lumens. If you see a light that has lux in its stats, you're going to know that's probably broadcast quality. But all light bulbs nowadays do lumens. It's essentially, lumens is the measure of output. So like a 60-watt light bulb is, an old 60-watt light bulb might be 700 lumens. You want to be in that 4,000 lumen range, but lux is the measure of light 1 meter away from the light on a 1 meter square object. So that is a standard. When you softbox things, it changes your lumens. That's measured in lux. One thing I love to do, I talk about a little bit later with the 60-30-10 rule, is add primary colors in. So in the back of all of my shots, I go between red and blue, and then mixtures of purple. As you see, if anybody took this class in here yesterday, it didn't look as nice as it does today. This one over here is a landscape light, waterproof. They're on Amazon for like $40. I hope I have an affiliate link on the site. If not, we need to do that. And then over here is a broadcast quality Amaran RGB1 that has 20 different effects. You don't need to do that. My work paid for it, so that's why it's here. But they are, this little bit of accent adds on. And you can add this accent to your existing tool. So if you're a Milwaukee group, have your accent light as red. If you're DeWalt, have it as blue, because on the color wheel, blue and yellow oppose each other. But adding that primary color accent gives just a little bit of interest. I met a channel yesterday, Wit. Is it Wit? Wit Woodworks? Yeah, like look at his background and how beautiful that is with the color. Make sure to get dimmable lights. And I want to push you guys eventually to broadcast lights. And we're going to talk about how to keep tripods off your floor. I don't have a single light stand anywhere. They have and I don't know if I talk about it here, but there are these little plates that you can buy for less than $20 or 2 for $20 on Amazon that have I'm trying not to get technical here so he doesn't yell at me. There's just a big stud that comes off that is a industry standard. And I have like 40 of them everywhere, in my ceiling, on walls, under cabinets, hidden, so I can put any sort of light anywhere, because we hate tripods in our shop. And when you have your A-roll location, I know many of y'all might not be talking head people yet or at all, but when you have your A-roll location, put everything you can into lighting that up beautifully. All right, so now we get into audio. This QR is for the audio video where I compare all the different microphones. And so what I did there, I wore 14 microphones between voiceover, a bunch of different lapels. Thank you. He warned me that was going to happen. It's going to be, what I did with the audio, I just normalized it. So when you hear that audio, that is the raw recording of that microphone. And you know how everybody loves this microphone and they're talking about this? You actually hear them against each other at normal 0 dB, as equal as I possibly could get them together. The main thing I talk about in that video is how is it powered and what is its pickup pattern. Microphones get broken into two categories, in my opinion. In fact, my opinion is fact, that it is either a microphone for you or for your equipment. It's for you to talk or for us to hear stuff happening, all right? They are two different microphones. There is no, I know this is contradictory to other presentations. Actually, it's not, because if you watch in Bourbon, he talked about he only uses lapel, and now he has a voiceover mic. And so now he doesn't have Foley or he doesn't have Nat in it, but you're going to have a different microphone that is in the shop catching all of your noise than the microphone you're doing your voiceover. Two ways that it's powered. You guys are only going to use the latter. First is dynamic. Those are the microphones you see singers with on stage, and them yelling powers that transducer, that little magnet to give the waves. We use condenser mics that have to be powered externally, USB, 48 volt phantom, etc., because that magnet needs to be a whole lot more sensitive, and so it takes a little extra power. So dynamic is not for us, condenser is. Then you've heard cardioid, hypercardioid, shotgun, rifle, etc. That is the pickup pattern. So these are cardioid mics. They have a mushroom pickup pattern that's picking up my voice, my beard, my shirt in what is right in front of the mic. Hypercardioid just extends that out a little bit like a traffic cone, and some of them are omnidirectional where they can hear a little bit behind them. Then you have supercardioid that does even more. Sometimes they call them shotguns, but rifle microphones are the ones you see on the football fields, and I use those to catch my Foley audio in the shop. No matter what microphone, you could do Foley audio with this lapel mic, but I'm going to record it separately. I'm going to take this lapel mic, and when I go to do my grinder shot or Tinder shot, and I'm doing my sanding, I'm going to shoot my video normally, and then I'm going to do another take with the microphone on the bench, and I'll actually have two microphones set at attenuating level. So as I'm recording here, there's my lapel microphone going into the camera, and then there's a shotgun that's catching all of y'all's amazing laughs that I'm going to play when I go to sleep tonight. But you want to get your microphone as close to the source as possible. Here's the thing. All right, let's do a real quick exercise for 10 seconds. I want you guys to identify 4 sounds in these next 10 seconds. All right? All right. Air conditioning projector? Nerd. Tinnitus. So exactly. Dude, I'm not kidding. I did car audio for years, and it sucks. So you had the air conditioner. We had the projector. There is a 60 hertz hum that is always around us, and it's usually somebody breathing, that sort of stuff. That noise you hear, sound is measured in negative. So 0 dB is the maximum sound can be. What we are listening to is right around negative 40, negative 35. It's amazing if your shop or studio is at negative 50. All right, so now, if I'm at negative 40, 0 is my peak. If I talk and my microphone is out here, and I'm talking at like 0 dB, but it's receiving me at like negative 20, all right? For me to get that negative 20 up to negative 6, I have to increase this. 20 to 6 is 14 decibels. I'm also bringing that negative 40 floor from negative 40 to negative 26. So as I bring my voice up, the floor has to come. So if I'm 0 here and it's 20 here because of this distance, now it's negative 8, now it's negative 4, now it's 0. So I'm going to have it right about here. And now the louder it's receiving me here, the less floor noise comes up with it. So as you're recording, I want your microphone as close to possible. They don't have to be seen. When I was at NAB conference, I learned from an audio guy on shows, they put their wireless microphones in glasses. There's a little wire that goes up, and they'll put these, I wish I would have brought one with me, and they'll hide it. They'll hide them behind your ear, those sort of things. You just want it as close, and there's different pickup patterns to allow this to happen, like boundary mics are omnidirectional. It's like a big snowball. But you want to hide them as best as possible. I will put moleskin, which is like wart remover. It's flesh colored. You can put that on your microphone, and it kills this noise, and it can stick to your skin. I mean, not my skin. Well, it's a fur coat until the microphone, then it just becomes skin. But you can adhere them to you and not be seen in the shop. Get as close to your possible. And then record negative 20, negative 6. As I'm talking, whenever I'm really low, I'm at negative 20. Whenever I get loud, I'm at negative 6. You want to have that 6 decibel buffer because if you ever hit 0, you've clipped. And that's how dubstep is made. And I know none of y'all want that. So now we're going to talk about our cameras. All right. Cameras receive light. That's how they work. You know, old ones, it would expose film, video, the sensor needs to see light. All right, so how is that exposure controlled? I am not going to go into this because I want to save you guys on it. The exposure triangle is shutter speed, which you just want to set at twice your frame rate as a rule of thumb. You can go below your frame rate if you want to get motion blur and that sort of stuff. You can go higher to attenuate light, to make it dimmer, and to catch fast motion. Your ISO gain, there is a ceiling to gain. ISO goes back to film days, and it's film speed. Gain and ISO are pretty much the same thing in a way, and it's just amplifying light, and so it's also amplifying noise. Some cameras are better than that. You can see your comparisons. But then the most expensive one is our aperture, and that is controlled by how much we spend on the lens. And it opens up like an iris, like your pupils. So as you guys have walked around in the middle of the night and stepped on Legos, your pupil, your iris opens your pupil up to allow more light to come in. And that allows you to see in the dark. Your camera does the same thing, but when that happens, the depth of field, which is, you guys have heard shallow depth of field, that is literally the depth of the field of view. So if my field of view is this big, then my focal point is here. All right, now if it's a shallow depth of field, my field of view is this. So an object right here is not in focus. An object here is kind of in focus. An object right here dead center is definitely in focus. So shallow depth of field, a little bit of focus. Long depth of field, everything's in focus. Ish. ISO gain, LED. If you have the Barina lights and you can't get broadcast lights and you try to do fast motion and you start to see that flicker, alter your shutter speed from divisible by 30 and 60. Try off speed of that, or try to have one light that is not on the 60 hertz. Dimmable LEDs that are not meant for video are always going to flicker, just like the Audi headlights you see in that commercial as they flicker when you go by. Aperture sensor, nerdy a bit. I will get nerdy real quick. All right, RAW and log are not equally comparative. RAW recording, you've heard this. If you don't know it right now, just stay away. It is the raw information being received by the chip by the sensor before the chip can determine it. So it's me speaking a language before somebody translates me into another language and interprets, not translate, interprets what I say. So your chip just interprets what the sensor is into Rec 709 and some of those color spaces. So when you record in RAW, you are eliminating somebody telling you what you're seeing. Log is a logarithmic way to look at light. Your normal receiving light is on a diagonal line like this. And this is black, this is white, and everything's even in between. A logarithmic scale has this curve to allow you to have more room in your light if you are one of these people who sometimes underexpose or overexpose your shots. It's also sometimes known as a flexible ISO, but it's an art. It takes a while to get used to it. I am just now starting to play with it, but it makes your shadows, you get to see more detail in your shadows and in your highlights instead of where most people just see a blob and a bright blob or a dark blob. And then, I won't talk 8-bit, 8-bit versus 10-bit. 256 is this big, 1024 is this big. 8-bit has this much color, 1024 has this much color options. You've seen color banding on your TV watching HBO Max. All I versus IPB. Has anybody ever wondered what this is? Should I move on? Anybody wonder what all I is whenever you see your codec on your thing? If I get 2 more people, I'll tell you. Okay, so intra-frame, if you are recording in all I, 30 frames a second, that is 30 individual frames. If you're recording an IPB, it's a mixture of I frames, P, and B frames, which means MOV QuickTime, ProRes 422, AVI, full-on codecs, 30 pictures. MP4, 1 picture, 29 frames that are just the information that was different. You ever seen sports where it freezes and you see the little guy going across the screen? That's what your MP4 camera looks like. Try to record in the other, because when you're getting those fast motions, if I said the words, do you know what I mean? I can take those words, cut them, and put them in any order. I know you do me. If I say the words, nah mean, they're both the exact same message, but one of those I can cut up more efficiently. That's all I. When you get a camera, you date the body, you marry the lenses. When you get into a thing, when you get into a ecosystem, you can get adapters, but you're going to drop maybe $1,000 on the camera, maybe $5 on the lenses. So your lenses make the difference. You date the body, you marry the lens, and you also rent the body. It's not a hooker. It's not a hooker camera. I want you to go to aperturerent.com, I think Cage, lens rentals, etc. If you're ever wondering about a camera and you're ready to drop $3,000 or $4,000 on a camera and you're tired of seeing people's reviews and you want to see it in action, number one, go to the camera video on my site because I'm doing the same thing as I did with microphones, or just go and rent one. A $4,000 camera for a weekend is $250. Are you willing to gamble $250 to save $4,000? Give it a try. Good lenses. Oh, get lens filters for nothing else than to protect the lens. I go and get neutral density, circular polarizer. I'm not going to get into the tech of what's the difference, but every lens I buy gets that $50 little add-on to it. Because how many of y'all have dropped your cameras in the shop? You've hit it with resin, you've hit it with glue, etc. That's hitting a $50 item, not a $1,000 piece of glass. So get the filters, put them on. Circular polarizing is, if you're doing resin overhead lights, it's a polarizer. You guys have polarizing sunglasses. Those lenses can be a variable polarize. All right. Camera mounts. Man, we are running through this. So we've done our microphones, our lights, our cameras. This is our stability. Like we broke microphones down, I break mounts into two categories, static and dynamic. Static being your tripods, your monopods, your frog pods. Please show this man some love. This has been one of the coolest relationships ever. Frog pods are epic for sticking stuff everywhere. So should the camera move? Should it stay still? What are you telling your story with? Hold on, let me make sure. Start with gimbal. When you do static, you should have 10 tripods around that you can throw away, some good ones. How many of y'all hate having to level your tripod up? I thought I had one with me. Get a bowl head adapter, and what's cool is the tripod could be all cockeyed, and there's a bowl that will level your camera with just a turn of a wrist instead of 3 legs. They're getting really cheap. They used to be like $1,000, now they're not. A tripod is not necessarily a device. It's 3 points of contact. You guys already have 2 of them. If I'm here, as soon as I stick my elbow on a wall, on an object, on my knee, I become a tripod. All right? You go from, I don't care how steady you think you are, you can be even more steady. Put your arm, elbow, lean, get some stability or some weights. For dynamic movements, you have dolly sliders, gimbals, cranes. Almost every movement has one. I would start with a slider and get a pivot head slider. Matt, he's still here. So after my class last year, Matt went and got the Canova with a pivot head. And if y'all saw his content before my class last year, you see why he's amazing now. Look at it before February of last year. Yeah. You're welcome. But those dynamic shots, if it's just a straight-on slider, that's going to be a reveal. You can turn the slider long ways and create intrigue as you go into something. You can set the slider backwards and be afraid of something. You can put a slider, if you've got the muscles, to go vertical, and it's a peak reveal. So everybody's just doing the normal slider. But what if you were doing a reveal that picked up over your workbench and said, peekaboo, here's my box?